How do we rename our possessions? How do we call our possessions our possessions? How do we move forward asking ourselves the same questions that have always been asked? Who lives? Who dies? And that, for me, that's why it says Black Futures, because never has these two words been coupled. It's as simple as loading a gun and putting bullets in it and firing it. Part of the reasons why museums is a Western concept is some of the greatest collection was done by stupid soldiers shooting up a village in Indonesia, shooting up a village wherever, and just taking the booty. I hope am I making sense to anybody?
After years of legal battles, political negotiations, and fierce protest from activist groups, an agreement has been reached on the reparations to compensate for colonial exploitation, human trafficking, and slavery. We have decided to invest our share of the payments in a unique project, the Museum of Black Futures. My name is Richard Coffey, and I'm the director of this future museum. And with this podcast, I'm taking you on a journey that began in 2021 with a provocative online event where we pitched the idea to our friends. And it continued to an exciting live event at The Mansion, a hip-hop platform in Nijmegen, which is the oldest city in the Netherlands. But who is we? We are now a collective built up out of architects, artists, curators, historians, researchers, and even a chef. But I started this proposition off with my podcasting partners in crime, Marcelino van Callias and Simone Zeefuik, who came up with the name of this museum. Black Futures, the Museum of Black Futures. It had a ring to it. We workshopped the concept during those first two events, and we were met with so much enthusiasm of our crowd, of the local communities that wanted to contribute to this idea, that we decided to stick with it, because it not only embodies an interesting mission, creating a new platform for Afrofuturism, for future thinking, it also represents an interesting moral dilemma. As one of our contributors, Mungayende Helen Cristel, once said, "What are you going to do the day after the revolution?" The Museum of Black Futures asks a similar question. What are we going to be after reparations? In the West, a museum represents history, the creation of a timeline, a canon, chaptered in categories that hold meaning in Western culture. Do we continue to define ourselves by Western paradigms? Do we search for an African or Afro-Caribbean alternative to the word? Or is it about time that we take back its meaning, since we and our culture have been put on display in such places for the longest time? Let's talk about this with one of our most passionate contributors, Femi Dawkins. Femi Dawkins, aka Jimmy Rage, is an artist with Caribbean roots based in London and Amsterdam, with an MFA from Goldsmiths University. His practice involves drawing, collaging, object making, installation, music, vocalizing, performing, poetry, and writing. His work focuses on the significance of personal narrative that translate into universal truths. His research and anthropological excavations bring to light untruths and voices of the unspoken. He draws inspiration from the streets, from migration flows, from city life, and he's always looking for new ways to tell stories. Stories that ask, where do histories such as the colonial past, where do they live in our bodies? How do they shape our emotions and our sense of self? He isn't afraid to test out certain ideas. He allows them to run through his body and through his imagination, and then sees what comes out of it. So sit back, relax, grab your ginger tea, and let's talk about what it means to build a museum.
Is it morning? Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody. On my way On my way here, I was thinking about a lot of things, but I was thinking about words like resurrection and reaffirmation, reclamation, reintegration. And one of the things that a Bible quote came to me, which is, I am the resurrection and the light. All who believe in me will not die, will live forever. And the whole concept, and why I'm bringing this up, is the idea of allowing something to run its course. And once it's run its course, it's reclaimed and reaffirmed. And I think one of the conversations that we're having here is, what shall we do with legacy, and what kind of legacy we would like to leave behind, and what kind of legacy we would like to reaffirm. And part and parcel of our lives is that it orbited a different kind of legacy that we have had to adjust our lives to, meaning we've had to integrate parts of our energies, parts of our social upbringing, parts of our creative upbringing, parts of our art into this space. And we've had to fit in. And so here we are now. Susan Sontag in Illness as a Metaphor says, when we're born, we're citizens of two worlds, citizens of the well, and at some point we're going to use the passport of the unwell. So we're at this place where we're not well. And so we need to use this passport to become better, to become better citizens, become into this space. The question now is, how do we navigate from one sector to the other? How do we rename our possessions? How do we call our possessions our possessions? And there's another way. There's a way where in nature has its way of allowing the seasons to change, allowing us to change within the seasons and within the contexts. We have an archive. So that archive now becomes a conduit. Like I've said in the podcast, it becomes a conduit to the rest of the world. So we're allowing others to look in. We're allowing he that believeth will not die. So he or they or we who believe that the next transition that we carry is going to be something where we reveal. You know, there's that quote where so-called Christ went into the temple and he was so upset he smashed everything. So we're not doing that. We are actually allowing the temple to be entered. We're allowing people to enter. We're allowing all kinds of people to have access to what is there, what is given, what was taken, what was returned. And now reclamation of the past. We're reclaiming the past to be able to understand in future tense how we are going to resist, revolt, rebel, and become. We're going to become new citizens in a different way. We're going to look at things in a different way. And it's not just going to be localized, it should be globalized. Because what part of the whole game is that we've suffered in sections it's called the diaspora for a reason, because we're dispersed around the universe. We've suffered in so many sections of the world. The thing is, at this point, we need to be quenched. Our thirst, we're hungry, but we're not hungry to dismantle. We're hungry to allow, to become, to be. And in the spaces that we occupy, or spaces that occupy us, we now need to open the doors, open the floodgates, and allow things to breathe. And once we allow things to breathe and we allow the air to transition into spaces like, I'm talking about the archives again, I'm come back to the archives, it no longer is just static. Because static doesn't do anything. It gathers dust. It doesn't allow, we keep what is in a name. But what is in a name? What is in a name? A name is when you name it, you call it. When you call it, you give it life, you give it freedom, you give it space to actually give it a new space, give it a new life. And so for me, in thinking about this question of what one does and what one calls and how do we call it. It's a collective space, and it's also a collective way of how do we go about this. It should be less about what the structure is and more about what is the structure emanating, right? Life. Because no one wants to be busy with, and this is why I come back to the resurrection. The idea that to not exhume it, but to resurrect it, to allow it to run its course and then reaffirm it by reclaiming that it had ran its course, and the new life that it's emanating is all life, all light. I hope am I making sense to anybody? I mean, everyone's looking at me with incredulous looking eyes like, what's he going on about? But the truth of the matter is, speaking truth to power, speaking and holding space, part of our healing is to allow ourselves to see what it is, to let go what it is, and in fact to call it what it was. It was a colonial space that occupied for far too long, occupied our minds for far too long. It was a thorn. It is a thorn. So how do you iron out a thorn? How do you allow that thorn? By opening it up, by turning the pages, by looking, by investigating, by illuminating, by being present. Because a lot of times we're not present. Artifacts are just collected, gathering dust because of some miserly attitude, because of the mechanisms of what colonialism has done, which is to take. And we're asking now like this. You know, we're not praying. We're asking. We're our hands are extended, and in our hands, you know that expression. He's got the whole world in his hands. Okay, here we are now, expressing gratitude, but not so much gratitude, because we can take that vibration a little step higher, and in that vibration, in that energy, we can change and shift, because that's what we want to do. We want to shift. And it doesn't matter, again, I come back to what is in a name. Was it Shakespeare? A rose is a rose, but a rose if it were given another name. What are we calling ourselves? How are we calling? And what are we calling on? And these are many questions, but they're answers that we have within the context of ourselves, the vortex of our mind. Again, I come back to it. How do we go from creating a spectator, turning us, we were spectators. We were put in zoos and adobe huts to entertain. How do we turn that around and say, oh, we've entertained you now, can we educate you? Can we give you a little bit, can we say, actually, what you did was really wrong, but we're at that space where that goes now. We'd like now to edutain and educate you on the spaces that we've occupied since you've made us into this, put us into this building, put us into this space, called a museum, since you've taken our artifacts and you've put it here. Can we take it back and look at it? Can we actually have a conversation about these artifacts? Can we actually now have an equalized conversation? Because we need equality in that regard. And I'm not talking about that governmental shit that everyone throws around. I'm talking about spiritual equality, because there's something to learn. It goes this way and that way. It's not a one-way street, as it used to be with the cross and whip and all of that. So can we have these conversations? And I believe that we can, if we allow ourselves to open all the windows that keep everything in like it's a mausoleum, and we're dying oxygeno, we're dying needing to have new oxygen. And so for me, the conversation is less about even what is the purpose of all of that, but the purpose now should be, how do we move forward asking ourselves the same questions that have always been asked. Who lives? Who dies? And that, for me, that's why it says Black Futures, because never has these two words been coupled. Okay? It's never been coupled like that when you say Black Futures, because everybody thinks that the future is a white orbiting thing that we just happen to be grabbing onto it at a Ferris wheel. But when you say Black Futures and you give it a specificity, it becomes, my point in answering that for me is that what we need to do then is decolonize the museum, the concept of the museum. How then do we? So it goes even deeper than just Hussein Beys. It goes into the structural space that needs radical changing, radical rebirth. It's as simple as loading a gun and putting bullets in it and firing it. Part of the reasons why museums is a Western concept is some of the greatest collection was done by stupid soldiers shooting up a village in Indonesia, shooting up a village wherever, and just taking the booty.
Usher unlocked the keys while they bomb with ease. Rafa, indiscriminate bodies under concrete slabs while they slap and chip and jab and jigger all across the half-gold spite and trigger of halftime, doing the bitter rhyme of the Super Bowl, while on the other side the death toll rings out under concrete blocks, bombs away and bombs all day, ludicrous being ridiculous, and will I am not knowing what was the stand that brought him to that land, that brought us to that place where the base thought and action of genocide conclude as they talk about their pride, their choice, their chester, their swagger on Super Bowl halftime, while on the other side in time